The college football show on the Coach T podcast, presented by Turner Sports Training, TST.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Hey. You know what time it is? Yeah. You know what time it is?
You are watching a master at work.
Some people are probably like, what time is it? You know what time it is.
Showtime.
We are back again on the Coach T college football show with Mook. Mook, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing, T? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. I'm doing well, ready to talk some college ball.
Outstanding. Me too.
All right, so quick reactions to, what are we calling this, week 0? Last week's games?
Yeah. It felt like about a 0 for me. So.
Well, I'll let you begin. Let's talk about the Nebraska and the Illinois game.
It just feels like a missed opportunity. As a Nebraska fan, I don't know if, we've talked about it a little bit here, but my fandom, of Nebraska, but what started out with looking like their defense was ready to roll and it looked as good as I've seen them in a few years, and it just all kind of fell apart. The offense was disjointed. Adrian Martinez, I feel like there's something wrong with him. He's just not healthy, either confidence-wise or he's got arm issues. He was missing receivers that he had to hit wide open. He's threw for 50% on the day. Had a couple where he did complete them, and if he hits them in stride, they're touchdowns. But it was the same old thing for Nebraska. Miscues, penalties at the worst possible time. You get off the field, get an interception going into halftime, up a touchdown with an opportunity to be in Illinois field position, and your outside linebacker, Caleb Tanner, who looked really well, good. Finally, looks like he's going to be hitting that 4-star potential, but he drives the quarterback into the turf, gets the unnecessary, and then taunts him. So it turns turnover turns into 30, and next thing you know, it's Illinois all the way. They knock out Illinois' quarterback, Peters, and all they do is bring in the backup and just ate him alive. So Brett Bielema, he outcoached Scott Frost. The players out executed the Nebraska players, the Illinois players did, and there's no doubt in my mind that the more talented team is Nebraska, but the better coached and better football team was Illinois that day. And that's where you're kind of at with that one. Moving forward for them, I don't know, man. Nebraska podcaster, I heard him make the kind of comment that maybe Nebraska was just looking forward to their arch rival Fordham, FCS, and look past. I thought that was kind of funny. But moving forward, they got to clean up so many things, and it was a disappointment. Illinois, I think that if you're an Illinois fan, you're really
feeling
happy.
good.
Yeah, I think you feel good, and I think you got a star with Isaiah Williams at wide receiver. He was quarterback for a couple of years, didn't work out. But he's kind of looks like he could be the next kind of Rondale Moore, Wan'Dale Robinson type kid.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Some of these athletes. You brought this up. Illinois was down to their second string quarterback in the middle of this game. And at that point, I'm like, there's no way Nebraska could lose this game. And lo and behold, they end up losing that game. Quite frankly, at this point, I feel bad for Scott Frost. Because I feel like he was the prodigal son that came back, did what a lot of people are afraid to do. He actually jumped out there and went back to his alma mater and understood that, could go both ways. And it has been a nightmare thus far. It really has.
12 and 21, 18 one-score losses, I believe the stat is. That's just not getting.
That's being outcoached.
Yeah, it is, and it's not that I don't think Scott Frost is a good coach, but
he is.
I think he could get away with some things at UCF that you cannot get away with in the Big Ten. You just can't.
Not with the powerhouses you face week to week, and not saying Illinois is a powerhouse, but Illinois they're trending upward. They had a really good team. I don't say really good team. They had a really good defense last year, and Brett Bielema, he's proven, so he'll get that school turned around. Let's make the next two quick. Hawaii and UCLA. UCLA won 45-10. It wasn't even close. My initial thoughts, just like my initial thoughts were a couple weeks ago, I think UCLA would be a good team this year. I have them beating LSU this weekend in Pasadena. Chip Kelly, I think maybe he heard this podcast. Maybe he's like, maybe I am on a hot seat if I don't win, early in the season. He did everything he could to negate Hawaii. Like, this is none of the Hawaii I've ever seen. 10 points in a game. Like,
right.
They couldn't move the ball at all. So, and it actually goes back to the point I wanted to make about Nebraska, not to pile on your boy, but
right.
Scott Frost said Illinois took away 50% of their offense because they played some wide nines and, some fives, and they really just slowed down what they did. And I felt like UCLA did the same thing with Hawaii.
Right.
And I think it's a little maybe tougher to do it with a Hawaii team because, Ty Grantham, they kind of throw it all over, a lot of play action. They get their backs involved in the pass game and obviously the run game as well. And typically he does a good job. He did a pretty good job at Arizona State, but man, you talk about a stifling defense. Like, and then you flip around UCLA, their running game is phenomenal, and the quarterback DTR, like, he's kind of up and down, but when he's on, man, he's a threat at the collegiate level. He's one of those true college quarterbacks that I think he'll probably only do well in college, but when he's in college, man, and he's clicking on all cylinders, like the run pass options for him are endless. So my early thoughts with UCLA is that they're going to be a good team. They should honestly be able to compete for the Pac-12 championship. And watch out, LSU. I think the Bruins are going to come fighting.
I think it's going to be fun. Just briefly with that, I think I want to see more out of DTR. I think that, like you said, he can be amazing, and then he just disappears. So, and I think we made the comment last week about how many people they had back on defense on an awful defense. Well, that's a pretty good showing. So I think you got to feel really good for UCLA with that win. So I think moving forward, I mean, this is a big game with LSU. Should be very interesting.
Last of the games that we highlighted before last week and we want to touch on, San Jose State. How do they look, man? I think Nick Starkel has a chance to be a dark horse candidate, quarterback for San Jose State. They're somewhat similar to, well, at least their performance was similar to UCLA's. Like, they ran the ball. Now, again, they're going against Southern Utah. It's not saying much. But they ran the ball well. They played stellar defense. They were able to take shots when they needed to. They got playmakers on the outside. They're definitely a team that not a lot of teams are going to want to face. And lo and behold, this week, San Jose State plays
USC.
Yes. I wouldn't be surprised if San Jose State pulls off that upset. What do you think about that game?
Yeah, I think this is the kind of game that's I don't want to call it a trap game at this point, but let's put it this way. Like, I like USC in this game, but this if things don't go well early, it could go south quick for them. And I think that San Jose State, I mean, possibly this could be the only game they lose until they face I think in November they take on Nevada, so that'll be probably for the Mountain West or their side of it. They're a good team. They bring back a ton. I think they're going to have what used to be kind of a bit of a laughing stock, one of the worst programs. They've really turned it around the last couple of years, and San Jose State's not going to be easy out for anyone.
No, they're not. And fans, if you can help us with that, I do want to create a term. Not a trap game, but I do know what you mean. It's one of those games where there's really no positive for USC. If you blow them out, you're supposed to. Clearly, if you lose, the sky is falling. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, one of those. Those are tricky. Let's get into our next topic, presented by Legacy Indiana 7-on-7 off-season football program. We're going to go through the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12. We're going to give our conference champion, our conference coach of the year, and then if we're feeling froggy enough, maybe we give the conference game of the year. How do you feel about that?
It sounds great.
All right, so let's start with the SEC. Mook, I will let you begin. Who is your conference champion?
I mean, it's Bama, so it isn't, right? And I got Alabama over Georgia in in the SEC championship game. There's a possibility Florida could sneak up on the other side, but I think it's an Alabama-Georgia one. For Coach of the Year, I think that pretty much everybody in the SEC outside of Bama is going to have a loss. So I think it's going to be hard to not say it's Nick Saban. I don't know how many he's won, but I think he'll get another one. I mean, part of me feels like, you could see a good year out of Ole Miss. I'm very excited to kind of see where they're at this year. So maybe Lane Kiffin can see, maybe Mark Stoops, if they can do some things over, but
forget about him. People forget about Mark Stoops.
Yeah. There's a lot of rumbling. He could be the next Nebraska coach. I don't know, but but I think that's probably Nick Saban's to lose. The game that I want to see, the one that I was looking through, October 23rd, LSU at Ole Miss. They are going to burn that scoreboard out. It's going to be smoking by the time it's over. So I think that'll be a really fun game.
All right, cool, man. Good stuff. I actually have as well the conference champion. I'm going to go with Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide. It's hard to go against them. Coach of the Year, I'm actually going to go with this one, a new coach, Josh Heupel, University of Tennessee, new head coach, was the former UCF head coach, scored a lot of points at UCF. Now, we just talked about a former UCF coach that made the big leap and not doing so hot. But I think Josh Heupel is one of those guys that, yes, he's proven at maybe a lower level, but I think when he takes that step up, his coaching also takes a step up. So Josh Heupel will get Tennessee turned around. They have a lot of resources that they are utilizing. We're not talking about the brown paper bag full of money for McDonald's bags,
the McDonald's bag, yeah,
yeah, the McDonald's, Arby's, whatever it was.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, they are I'm going to call them a franchise because they're one of the programs that I think is a franchise. They're one of those franchises that will invest in their program. They gave Heupel a lengthy, lucrative contract. So they're going to put all their chips onto the table, push them forward and say, hey, let's try to compete with Alabama in the next few years. So I think Josh Heupel will get that turned around. My game of the year also involves Tennessee. It's kind of just off the top of the dome, but I really do want to see Tennessee's, what I think their expected offense will be with new quarterback Joe Milton, correct? Joe Milton is the Michigan transfer at quarterback.
Right.
Yep. I think he's a starter tonight. So that game is actually on. But they will have a good offense. I do expect that. And then I want to see that offense against their rivals, the Florida Gator defense.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's going to be a really good game. And if Josh Heupel is the Coach of the Year candidate, that means that their team is doing pretty well. So seeing that matchup, that could potentially be a matchup that puts one of those teams into the SEC championship. All right, next, our beloved Big Ten. Mook, I'll let you go. Who's your conference champion?
So I mean, almost like the same way that I just said about Alabama. I mean, it's Ohio State, so it isn't. But I think I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path with them taking out in the Big Ten championship game the team that they're playing right now, Minnesota. So
that game's on for me right now. I'm watching it right now. Yep.
Yeah. So I haven't got it yet. So I think that, and this is obviously not knowing what's going on the TV right now, but I think that that Ohio State's just got so much offensively that CJ Stroud just walks into a trio of probably the best three receivers you can have. You got Master Teague and running the ball along with two outstanding freshmen. Like, I don't know how you pick against Ohio State, but I will say that PJ Fleck, because he'll get there, will be the Coach of the Year. And PJ Fleck, I really appreciate what he's been through in his life, I think he's corny, but it resonates with his guys.
Roll the boat.
Yeah, it resonates with his guys, so you can't say anything. But my game of the year, this is the one, is October 23rd again. It's when Indiana upsets Ohio State for their only loss of the year.
I love it.
I knew you would. I know you like it.
All right, cool. Well, I could easily be a homer and say Indiana will be the conference champions, but they happen to be on the same side as Ohio State. To me, it's they'll be in a running for it, and if they do pull off that upset, that clearly propels them into the number 1 spot. It is hard for me to go against Ohio State. I don't want to have any recency bias and go with Minnesota, because Minnesota is leading right now against Ohio State. But if Minnesota is able to pull off this win, or honestly, even if they're not able to pull off the win, the fact that they're senior heavy, senior laden team, a redshirt senior quarterback in Tanner Morgan. They have a senior running back who was preseason all Big Ten. The receiver, Autumn Bell, I think is his last name.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal. And their defense, they have a bunch of returning starters, and they're on the weaker side of, quote unquote, the weaker side of the Big Ten. So with that being said, I don't see why Minnesota couldn't be playing Ohio State in the championship game. So I'm actually going to roll with you on that one. Now, who ends up being the winner of that matchup? You probably got to lean Ohio State at that point, because they'll be playing for a Final Four slot. But Minnesota is clearly built to last, and I think they're a team that week to week, they're going to have a lot to prove, and pay attention to them winning a lot of games in 2021. My coach of the year, I'm going to go with Pat Fitzgerald. Northwestern. Okay. He's one of those coaches that has been around for a long time. They lost some NFL talent, especially in the secondary last year.
Yeah.
But they also bring back some quiet as kept NFL talent. So I think this team they begin week 1 against Michigan State at home. That's a win for them. I like Northwestern there. I just feel like Pat Fitzgerald, he's a well-respected coach, yet he's a coach that doesn't get as much hype. So the fact that, and I'm sure he's won this award before, he's had to, but I think that this year with low expectations, I like low expectations for teams like this, because that means that clearly it's much easier for them to exceed those expectations. If Northwestern has an 7, 8, maybe pushing it 9 win year, he's clearly the coach of the year, because they lack true elite talent from year to year. So what he does with them, he works magic when it comes to coaching. He's well respected enough. He's been around long enough, and I could see him winning that award.
Absolutely. He does more with less all the time. And he just came out today kind of rallying around his guys, saying, how people are selling us short, but, just because we're short on experience doesn't mean we're short on talent. And, I feel kind of the same way. I think they're probably a 7-win team, but never count them out. They'll be fundamentally sound. That's for sure.
Darn tootin'. All right. Next conference, the ACC. Who is your conference champ? Mook.
Oh man, I'm taking Clemson over North Carolina. Unfortunately, you can see it's building towards this Final Four by these picks, unfortunately. But I do think that they are gonna. I did pick them to lose to Georgia. So I don't feel like Clemson's gonna go unbeaten this year. My game of the year is October 16th. It's Miami. I'm taking Miami to upset, or you can call it upset, maybe North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
No, not my Tar Heels. No.
Yeah, but the good news is that they'll take a week off, and then they will go to South Bend and beat Notre Dame. So if that makes if it makes you feel better, my coach of the year, I'm going to say NC State Dave Doran before he leaves for Nebraska. He's going to go 10-2 at NC State this year.
Wow. I love it.
I'm getting bold with it, you know.
You are. You got to get bold a little bit. You got to. You got to. All right. So for the ACC, my picks, my conference champion, I will go against you. I am going with the University of North Carolina Tar Heels. Okay. That's my team. I have Sam Howell as my Heisman hopeful. He's my leading candidate. With that being said, Mac Brown will be the coach of the year also. They, luckily for them, I'm looking at their schedule now. Let me pull this up. They do not play Clemson.
No.
And I don't know how the brackets work out with the ACC. I don't know. I don't think they're on the same side. Clearly they're not because they don't play them. Okay. They start the year at Virginia Tech. Then they have Georgia State. Then they back end conference against Virginia. Then at Georgia Tech. Play Duke at home, Florida State at home, Miami. This is the run that I was talking about last week.
Right.
Florida State at home, Miami at home, and then Notre Dame at Notre Dame. I mean, again, you don't play Clemson. Your tougher games are, later on in the middle of the season, week 6, 7, 8, around that time. So you're revved up at that point. You are who you are at that point. You can, a couple of those matchups, especially Georgia State. I don't know how good Georgia Tech is going to be. I think they'll be a little better than last year. Duke, you don't know how they're going to be, but you may end up having a couple games before you actually play Florida State, Miami, and Notre Dame to kind of rev up and get some practice plays against what you expect from those teams weeks in advance to prepare you, and that only helps you, of course. So I'm all in on North Carolina. I love the Tar Heels. I love Mac Brown. I love Sam Howell. Go Tar Heels.
Yeah. That could be Mac Brown's best chance since having Vince Young. I mean, that's my opinion on it.
My game of the year in the ACC, looking at the schedule, honestly, the biggest game would have been, and this may come in the ACC championship, Clemson versus North Carolina. I'm actually going with that as my game of the year. I'm not only predicting that, I'm going to say that is actually happening. And I have Sam Howell and the North Carolina Tar Heels winning that game late by a score of 35-28 in the ACC championship game. So I'm projecting this way out. Clemson, I just feel like they're going to run through the teams they're going to play. They have more talent than anyone. Okay. But as soon as they have to play against North Carolina late in the season, not playing them at all, having no experience with what they like to do. Now you can go back to last year's film and last year's game, but it's a totally different game, totally different team. So when you're looking at, hey, we haven't played this team all year, they're able to prep for what we do. Phil Longo, offensive coordinator of North Carolina, I absolutely love his game plans and what he does. He will throw everything in the kitchen sink at Clemson. So that is for right now, it's a game that's not on the schedule, but I'm going with it as my ACC championship game, Clemson versus North Carolina. North Carolina wins by a touchdown.
Love it.
Bold, I know.
Yeah.
All right. Next conference, second to last, we're going to go to the Big 12. The Big 12 that is now the Big 12 now is going to be like the Big 8 pretty soon. So Big 12, who do you have as the conference champion?
Well, the Sooners won 7 in a row. I think we're just going to say 8 in a row for me. I really do like Iowa State, but it's hard for a team like that. It feels like to do it 2 years in a row to get to that level. I think there'll be like a 10-2 type team. And that brings me to my game of the year is where Sarkisian upsets them. It'll be Matt Campbell's last big game before he takes over at Michigan. Look at me, I'm just throwing them out all over the place now. But
I like it. Spice it up.
But no, I feel like Sarkisian's gonna get a win. I don't see it happen in the Red River, but I think he's gonna pull off one of those wins that gets Texas excited to play again and to leave before they start getting beaten up in the SEC. If I'm looking at it the right way, Lincoln Riley has to probably be the coach of the year because I don't have them losing during the regular season.
Okay. Well, I'm actually going to start with my game of the year because it involves my pick for the conference champion, the Red River Shootout, Oklahoma versus Texas. I was going to go Oklahoma, but now that you said it and they won 7 in a row, I just feel like I don't want to lean into that trend. Why not buck the system? I'm going to go with Texas as a conference champion. They have the talent to do it. They have a wonderfully talented backfield. Okay, they do have a new starter at quarterback. Always like Sam Ellinger. He was always a really good player. He's one of those players kind of in the mode of the quarterback I spoke about earlier. I just think he's one of those really good college quarterbacks. Okay, so you do have to replace him. But the new guy they're bringing in, I think it's Card is his last name. I think he played late in the season last year. He is phenomenal. He has a bunch of talent, has a bunch of arm talent. He can throw it, he can sling it. Plus, he can run the ball himself. So I think when you add that on top of the run game that they'll have with their backfield, and then I'm just in love with Sarkisian and what he can do on offense. So I think if that defense can just do a little bit, if that defense can do just a little bit to stop the run, stop the pass, be a bend but don't break type of defense, I think Texas has everything you need and more to win the Big 12 championship. I'm going with Texas there. All right, so my conference coach of the year for the Big 12, I'm going with Matt Campbell, Iowa State coach. I know as a Lions fan, he reportedly was offered like $80 million to coach the Lions. So right. NFL team is offering that. He's clearly one of the superstars in the profession. A lot of people ask, well, like, why is he still at Iowa State? Why is he still coaching the Cyclones? Why is he still there? I think because he does have bigger plans, but he just has not accomplished what he needs to accomplish yet. I think they will be in the running for conference champions, but at the very least, they'll pay their respects to Coach Matt Campbell, and he'll win Big 12 Coach of the Year. All right, last conference, Pac-12. We're heading out west. Mook, who is your conference champion?
I tell you what, this one was a hard one for me. I really kind of was playing the games in my head and whatever, and I think that Oregon is the best team in the conference. I'm taking Washington to win the Pac-12, though. For some reason, I just have this feeling that they're getting Oregon at home.
Jimmy Lake.
Yeah. The immortal Jimmy Lake. And he's going to be my coach of the year because he has to be, right? For that. But I'm going to take them over USC. And I think that I don't see Washington. I thought, well, can Washington actually, if I'm taking them, are they undefeated? Did they go into the And then I said, no, no, they're going to lose to Arizona State after they beat Oregon. So I talked myself out of it. But I'm going to take them over USC in the Pac-12. Game of the year, I would say it's going to be the Washington-Oregon game. I think that it'll be a really good one. And Jimmy Lake is my coach of the year for the Washington Huskies.
I really do like that pick, Mook. That's a really good one. Washington is going to play some defense. Jimmy Lake is their former defensive coordinator, so they don't miss a beat there. And he's going into his second season as head coach there.
Yeah, so, the half, right? Yeah,
second season or finish. Yeah, but the half a year. Going through these teams in the Pac-12, Arizona, they have no chance. Arizona State, I like the quarterback. I like Herm. They're not ready yet. Cal, not enough talent. Colorado, same situation. Oregon, they have a chance. Oregon State, they'll be better this year, but they're not going to win it. Stanford, that's a wild card. That's a real wild card. UCLA, yeah. I could really jump on the bandwagon, but I'm not committed yet there. USC is USC. My pick, you talked about Washington and obviously you got Washington State. Mm-hmm. The team that I did not mention, the Utah Utes.
Yeah.
People do not give them enough credit. People do not give their head coach enough credit for the job that he has done over the last, he's been there maybe 10 to 12 years. And I feel like they haven't had a losing record since he's been there. They always have a stout defense. They always have a really good running game. And they just make it work there. So if you're talking about a team that is a dark horse team that a lot of people are not necessarily banking on winning the Pac-12, my pick would be Utah. When the smoke clears, I just feel like they have the talent, they have the defense, and most importantly, it's college sports. They have the coaching to get it done. So if you give me Utah versus SC, Utah's beaten SC over the last couple of years. Like they've gone back and forth. It's been very competitive. And other than that, Washington, I love that pick. Oregon, you have that. But really those four teams between Oregon, Washington, SC, and Utah. It's really, you're picking out of those squads, maybe UCLA, but I don't know, man. I just feel like Utah has everything they need to get it done. The coaching is going to be phenomenal. And I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see what they do in Utah.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of fun late night games. You know, that's the one thing that's pretty cool about the Pac-12, you know, being Midwest guys, is that just when you think that your day of college football is over, you know, you get a shootout and, you know, out west somewhere. So I agree. I think it could go a lot of different ways.
Yeah, don't tell my wife that, because she says that West Coast football is not real football. I don't know why she says that, but she's like, I never can see it as just real football. It just feels like it's like backyard to me. I'm like, well, that's part of the reason why I like it. So
yeah, it's fun football. I don't know that it's the best football. It's fun football. If you like points, and, you know, I mean, it's fun to watch. Except for teams that, you know, then all of a sudden you have like Cal and Stanford, which are the defensive type teams. So, but
you get a little bit of everything, to be honest.
Yeah, you do. You do.
So Kyle Whittingham, the Utah coach, he will be my coach of the year. I think that would be maybe a second time winning that award. And then my game of the year is Utah versus Oregon. Okay, that will be in Salt Lake. That's gonna be the home game for Utah. That's the second to last game of the regular season for those guys. So you talk about, you know, implications. That could not only be implications for the Pac-12 championship, but who's to say? I know maybe Utah is undefeated at that point, and maybe they're talking about playoffs. You never know. You know, I feel like we never get a West Coast team, and I don't know. Maybe Utah can pull it off. So
no, I agree. I mean, I tried to talk myself into it. I just, I guess, you know, it was just hard to go against the trend when we kind of get into our Final Four picks.
All right. So speaking of the college football playoff predictions and our picks, great segue, Mook. Our next segment will be our predictions for the college football playoffs. So we'll pick our Final Four teams. Mook, I will begin with you. Who are your teams for the Final Four this season?
Okay, so I hate I hate that the Final Four that I have, because it's just so overdone. But
you can give us four, but if you want to give us a couple other teams that will be hovering around, potentially filling those spots, tell us that as well.
Okay, I like that. So I got Alabama going in as the 1. Oklahoma's 2, Ohio State, who I think is going to have a loss to Indiana, it's 3, and Clemson will be my 4. So you got Bama, Clemson first round, and Ohio State, Oklahoma. I have Bama and Oklahoma, and I have Alabama again, and it bothers me, but I'm not that I have anything against Alabama. It's just, I guess, when you just want a little bit of something different, you know, in your sweet tea, you know, and unfortunately, you know, Nick Saban's, he's just got it going. So I expect Alabama to be there. If there's a couple other outliers that I would say, I think that I look at North Carolina and I look at, like I say, Washington, if they were to win the Pac-12. So those would be kind of my my outsiders looking in. I don't feel like maybe there's another Big Ten team that's quite there. And, you know, the ACC's got a couple that I do like, but I think they would knock each other off. And I think it would be like the North Carolina slipping through, should they get a win over Miami, should they get a win over Clemson, especially if they beat Notre Dame on top of it. So.
Yeah, this is very tough. You almost don't want to get sucked into, you know, the typical Final Four teams you see every year. So I'm actually going to go with, and the fact that, especially me personally, you know, I picked a couple teams that aren't your traditional teams that are going to win their conference. So, you know, a team like UNC, do they make it? I don't know. I mean, I feel like if they do beat a Clemson, to me, it'll really help them to play Clemson in the ACC championship, because that's the last look that any, you know, voter is going to have. And if you have UNC that is maybe lost one game at that point, but they beat Clemson. I think that's a much better look. And they're obviously coming from a quote-unquote power conference that has put some teams out. Now, the team is typically Clemson, but, ACC is going to get a team if a team is, a one-loss team. Alabama's going to be in there. Texas, I do have them winning the Big 12. I'm going to put Texas in there. So if you give me a UNC, you give me Alabama, you give me Texas, now that leaves one more spot. Does that go to a Pac-12 team? Does that go to the second team in the SEC? We've seen that before. Does that go to an independent? The only independent that could really hold their weight would be Notre Dame. But, I feel like they've been there recently before too, and they've been getting their butts kicked. So It's tough this year, but I think that's what makes it fun. So for a fourth team, I'm just going to throw someone in there. You know what? I'm going to go with my Utah boys. Why not? So I'm going to do it. I have Alabama, Texas, UNC, and Utah. Wow. That sounds crazy now that I actually say it, but
that'd be a lot of fun.
It would be a lot of fun. To the further point, I do feel like it is time for the NCAA to expand the teams. Like they need at the very least 6 teams. Okay, if you have 6 teams, you have 2 teams with a bye, kind of like how the NFL does it with 2 wild cards on top of the 4 teams that made it. If not, then give us 8 teams. You can still do bye weeks for the top teams, so they don't have to play a bunch of more games. But you have 6 to 8 teams, and now that really opens up the door for what we all love college sports to be: upsets, more rivalries, more big brands going against each other. Until we get that, I'm never going to be satisfied with just 4 teams. But this year we'll only have 4 teams, and those would be my 4 that I have: Alabama, Texas, Utah, North Carolina.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I guess my feeling is that more than likely, just in my head, I feel like there's going to be 2, maybe 3 teams out of the 4 that maybe have a loss. And so I think it's going to kind of speed up the expansion because there's going to be some teams out there that are going to be like, well, we have 1 loss.
Yeah, that's the problem we run into, Mook. That's exactly it. That's what we run into. We got a bunch of teams with 1 loss, and then you're looking at, well, who had the better 1 loss? Or, does this team have 2 losses, but their 2 losses were against, top teams? So is that better than the 1 loss Team X had that was against a mediocre team? To me, that just, why do all of that when you can easily just have these teams play each other? Just match up. Right. Just play the game. Just play the game. Yeah. So speaking of the games, we'll wrap up. This will be our last segment. We'll just go over the Labor Day weekend games. And this is presented by Hobart Football. We have my team, my Tar Heels, at Virginia Tech. And then we have Michigan State at Northwestern. Which game do you, Mook, want to look at?
Honestly, being a Big Ten guy, the Michigan State Northwestern game at first blush isn't exciting because there's a lot to be answered about both teams. Northwestern losing a ton of guys, but like we talked about with Pat Fitzgerald, he's just going to bring him back and do the best he can with what he has, and that's going to probably end up being a contending team because they just do all the time. Yeah, I'm pretty interested to see what Michigan State's going to do with all these transfers that they brought in. They have 41 players that were not on the team last year that are on their team now, including 15 transfer guys. So Mel Tucker's like totally changing that whole roster. We don't even know who their quarterback's going to be coming into tomorrow. I think that I like Northwestern over there, but I think it's going to be a complete mystery. So I don't know what to expect in it. So I'm kind of intrigued to see what I'm going to be looking at from both teams.
Yeah, more mystery, the better in that matchup.
Right.
The game that I'm intrigued by is obviously North Carolina and Virginia Tech. This game will be held at Lane Stadium. Beamer Ball is back. We never talked about that. Beamer Ball is back. The son of famed head coach Frank Beamer. His son is now the head coach of Virginia Tech. We all know about a couple things in life are guaranteed: taxes, death, and playing on a weeknight at Lane Stadium at Virginia Tech is always tricky. Those are the guarantees in life. So UNC, you better be ready. You're my pick for everything this year. I mean, I'm all in on Tar Heels. So we need you guys to get a great start to this year. And I think North Carolina just barely squeaks out that game. But I'm just intrigued overall by the atmosphere that will be Lane Stadium. Does Beamer ball mean that younger Beamer or his teams play a lot like his father's teams played in terms of special teams and defense, winning that way? So I'm just overall intrigued by the head coaching matchup too. You got a veteran in Mac Brown against younger Beamer. So I got to get his first name. I don't know why that's slipping me, but overall, this will be a competitive matchup. It'll be a tight game. I love night games, especially weeknight games with these college guys. So this will be an awesome matchup. Looking at Saturday, and I'll let you get the Monday game, but looking at Saturday, the game that we hit on a little bit that I'm interested in is the San Jose State and the USC game. This is 5:00 Eastern time at the LA Coliseum in LA. This will be a barn burner. Like, USC better come with their track spikes on, because I don't think San Jose State is scared of USC at all. I really don't. And like you said, it's one of those trap games for USC, because if they win big, they're supposed to. If they lose, they're not supposed to. So they're really between a rock and a hard place. It's a catch-22 for them. It's a catch-22 game. There you go. That's what it is. Yeah. Okay. San Jose State will have nothing to lose. They've already played a game this year, so they have the leg up there. Anything could happen in that game. Anything.
I just agree with everything you said on that. I mean, if San Jose State came out and, pulled the upset, it would not be shocking, but man, I would hate to be, Clay Helton then, the next day, because, he can't really catch a break and, out there, but that would be a really devastating loss for USC. So what are we looking at? Louisville, Ole Miss on Monday?
Ole Miss, the last game of the weekend. 8 p.m. Eastern at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia.
That place is going to be, and I talked about the LSU Ole Miss game about, lighting up the scoreboard, but I think when you see, Malik Cunningham at Louisville going after Matt Corral, I mean, it's going to be nuts. I don't think anybody's stopping anybody else. It could be one of them, like, 50 to 56 49 type games. I don't know. Louisville, I think that the overall talent at Ole Miss, I mean, they just keep pumping out wide receivers. I don't think they're going to be stopping any of those wide receivers. Jonathan Mingo, Ontario Drummond, I mean, they're going to have big years this year, and it's going to start in Atlanta against them. So I don't see it going Louisville's way, but it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, whoever has the ball last in this matchup wins the game. That's how I look at it. Yeah. I was intrigued by Ole Miss. I almost felt like I wanted to pick them as a sleeper in the SEC. I think they're a couple years away, and they lost some NFL talent, especially, I think his name is Elijah Moore, who was drafted by the Jets. But Ole Miss, I think Lane Kiffin can cook up something week one. So he'll do a great job against Louisville. This will be a big game. He's used to big games, being a former NFL coach and coach at Tennessee and USC. So these big matchups he's used to. Louisville will, like you said, they'll be able to score, no doubt about it. Will they score enough, or will they have the ball last to score at the end? I do not think so. I think Ole Miss wins this game. It will be a shootout. It'll be really fun, and this is the last game of the slate for the weekend, so it'll be a nice little way to go out a Labor Day weekend.
Absolutely, I think it'll be a blast, and I think just the Lane Kiffin thing, it's going to be a lot of fun watching, when they line up against Alabama again. I like watching, just the difference between Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin's personalities, especially when Lane was his offensive coordinator. We know that kind of went a little bit weird at the end, but Lane Kiffin is a lot of fun. There's so many great coaches in the SEC and the Big Ten, especially. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be real fun, and we are off.
I'm going to go finish the fourth quarter of this Minnesota-Ohio State game. Mook, I appreciate it. You do a phenomenal job as always. We are back next week. Fans, continue to support us. Continue to show love. Mook, do you have anything you want to say?
No, just happy, Labor Day to everybody, and enjoy your long weekend, and and just stay healthy, and and watch some football with your family. Distance if you need to, or whatever, but just watch some football and stay healthy. Enjoy yourself.
Enjoy. So from Mook to me, Coach T, you guys keep supporting. We'll keep bringing that funk. Peace.